In 1942, the World Cup didn't happen. Neither did it happen in 1946. You know why? The trophy was hidden inside a shoebox under a bed in Italy to stop the Nazis from melting it down. That's not even the craziest part of this story. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn the entire history of the World Cup, from a tiny gold trophy in 1930 to the biggest sporting event on Earth. No boring textbook stuff, just the wild, weird, and genuinely insane story of how this thing became bigger than the Olympics. Let's start at the beginning. 1930, Uruguay, a small country in South America that nobody expected to host anything. Here's the thing about the first World Cup. Almost no one showed up. Europe didn't want to spend 3 weeks on a boat just to play soccer. Only 4 European teams made the trip. Out of 13 total teams, that's it. Imagine throwing a party and only a third of your friends bother coming. But Uruguay won, on home soil, in front of their own fans. And just like that, a tradition was born. Quick pause. Here's something that'll blow your mind. The original World Cup trophy wasn't even called the World Cup. It was called the Jules Rimet Trophy, named after the French guy who basically invented the whole tournament. And it was tiny, like you could hold it in one hand. Solid gold, shaped like a winged goddess holding a cup. Cute, small, completely unprotected. Which brings us back to that shoebox. During World War II, Italy had won the trophy twice in a row. When the Nazis invaded Italy, an Italian official named Ottorino Barassi got scared they'd melt the gold down for the war. So what did he do? He smuggled it out, wrapped it up, and hid it under his bed in a shoebox for years. The Nazis searched his house. They never found it. That's the level of chaos hiding behind this trophy's history. Now, let's talk about why the World Cup even matters. Here's a comparison that'll make sense to Americans. Imagine if the Super Bowl wasn't just one country's biggest game, but every single country on the planet had their own version, and then once every 4 years, the best ones fought for one trophy. That's the World Cup. It's not a league, it's not a season, it's a knockout tournament between entire nations, and it only happens every 4 years. That scarcity is the secret sauce. You wait 4 years for this, 4 years of buildup, then 1 month of chaos. By the 1950s and 1960s, the tournament started growing. More countries, more fans, more money. But it also got political, fast. In 1950, Brazil hosted the World Cup and built a stadium so massive it could fit almost 200,000 people, bigger than basically any stadium that exists today. They were so confident they'd win, newspapers had already printed Brazil world champions the morning of the final. They lost to Uruguay in their own stadium, in front of their own fans. It's considered one of the most devastating sporting moments in history. Some Brazilian fans reportedly had heart attacks in the stands. To this day, Brazilians have a word for it, the Maracanazo, the disaster of the Maracanã. Let's pause here, because you might be wondering what actually makes someone good at this sport. Quick answer, it's not just speed or strength. Football rewards intelligence. Players have to read space, predict movement, and make decisions in half a second while running. That's why tiny countries with no money sometimes beat giant wealthy nations. Brain power beats budget more than in almost any other sport. Moving into the 1960s and 1970s, 2 names start to dominate the story: Pele and Brazil. Pele won his first World Cup at just 17 years old. 17! That's younger than most high school seniors. He went on to win 3 World Cups total, a record that still stands today. Nobody else has done it. By 1970, color television had arrived and the World Cup exploded globally. This is the moment football stopped being just a sport and started becoming a worldwide obsession. Then in 1982, the tournament expanded again, growing from 16 teams to 24. More countries, more dreams. Tiny countries that never had a shot before suddenly got a stage. This is actually one of the most beautiful parts of football. A country with almost no money can still qualify and shock the world. It's happened again and again. Here's a wild stat for you. The 1994 World Cup, hosted in the United States, still holds the highest average attendance of any World Cup ever, higher than tournaments hosted in football-obsessed countries like Brazil, Germany, or Argentina. Americans showed up in numbers nobody expected. Stadiums built for American football, packed wall to wall for a sport the most of the country barely understood at the time. Funny how that works. By the 2000s and 2010s, the tournament became a global mega event. Billions of dollars in broadcasting deals, billions of viewers worldwide. The 2014 final alone was watched by over 1 billion people. For comparison, the Super Bowl, America's biggest sporting event, gets around 100 to 120 million viewers. The World Cup final regularly does 10 times that. That's not a typo, 10 times. And we can't talk about modern World Cup history without mentioning 2022 in Qatar. It was the most controversial World Cup ever held, moved to winter for the first time because Qatar's summer heat is dangerous enough to cause heat stroke just standing outside. It was also the most expensive World Cup in history, reportedly costing over $200 billion. To put that in perspective, every previous World Cup combined cost less than that. And it ended with arguably the greatest final ever played, Argentina versus France, Messi versus Mbappé. The match went to extra time, then penalties, capping off a story that started with Messi's first World Cup attempt back in 2006. 16 years chasing one trophy. He finally got it. So, here's where we land. The World Cup started in 1930 with 13 teams and barely any attention. Today, it's the single most watched event on planet Earth, bigger than any league, any Super Bowl, any award show, combined audiences and all. And here's the thought I want to leave you with. This tournament has survived world wars, stolen trophies, political conflict, and decades of change, and it keeps getting bigger every single time. No other event on Earth unites that many countries, that many languages, and that many people, all watching the same ball at the same time. That's not just a sport, that's the closest thing humanity has to a shared heartbeat. If this gave you a new appreciation for the World Cup, hit subscribe, because we're breaking down everything about this sport, one video at a time.